voted on.
Certain
have to be added.
certain states are still holding on to, all sorts of gun laws. And what baffles me is if they can reverse if they can reverse the abortion law, which was so old, why do they find it so hard to reverse a gun law to protect citizens? When you hear about children shot to the point where their faces are disfigured, their bodies are disfigured, and you see policemen putting hand sanitizer, afraid to go in where the children are being shot.
That was on the.
What is being done?
She's referring to the school CCTV cameras that showed the police officers just standing back for over an hour. Wow.
His hands. That's crazy. What's being done about that sort of thing?
I was referring to in this talk like a moment ago, saying that in a Christian society, not the people that Christians, just the leadership I'm referring to,
yes.
They believe that guns is the solution to all political problems, and something they don't like, they can trigger young adults or even old adults to, instead of engage in debate like we're doing here, which is noble, they engage instead of pulling a trigger. Because when you're pulling a trigger, you don't need to think anymore. You don't need to ask, learn, develop, or grow as a human being.
Where you don't want to listen, you're just...
And that's encouraged in American Christian society, that sort of understanding and relationship with the world, which is why America conducts such horrific wars. It's not the Christian people, it's the Christian leadership. This is the emphasis. Christianity, like Muslims, like Jewish people, are wonderful, but their leadership is owned by a particular little group of people that believe violence is the solution to all the world's problems and poverty and many of ours.
And as a Muslim, I like to defend Christians in this sense that, and I'm not saying it's against you, that it's strange that there are Christian leaders who support gun violence when Jesus taught if somebody slaps you on one side, you have to off the
other side.
Imagine that. You'd be like, here's a gun, if I shoot you, you're welcome to shoot me back. You wouldn't do that, right? And I think the biggest problem Christianity is facing, and if they face this problem, they would solve so many problems, is they should go back to their teachings. Because they watered down the religion and they don't follow any of it. And it's not Jesus' fault, okay? It's some guy called Saint Paul who came along after Jesus went away, and he just said, you don't have to follow the laws anymore, which I don't think is helpful, because I think religion is like a self-help guide, okay? And if it's an empty, you can do anything you want, that's not a self-help guide. But I think the religion of Christianity is very much like Judaism, very much like Islam, has very practical things. It says, get together every Sunday, be friends with your neighbors, do things like you do want for other people. Like, have you got any sort of affiliation with any faith?
Well, I'm Christian, but I get troubled. I'm Christian in the broadest sense of the word, because I just believe in love, and I believe in tolerance, and I believe in, you must listen and talk to each other and so on. And the whole thing of violence, even taking it to, especially in my mind, since Trump came into power, the world has changed. There's so much hatred. Because the one man, just each time he opened his mouth, he just talked hate, all for his own political gain. But it's amazing how much people pick up, as soon as there's somebody high up in power who allows hatred, they pick up on it very quickly. And it has spread, to Europe, it has spread to everywhere,
So now I'm going to say something.
But when you talk as a Muslim, yes, when you talk as a Muslim, I'm equally troubled by some of the hatred that some Muslims express through terrible violence, which in my head is the same violence that young man, in Vivaldi, at that school, must have had some hatred for something, and it brewed so much in his mind. But what I couldn't understand is why he had to go and kill the children, instead of going and taking it out somewhere else.
I think it's very important to understand why he did choose children.
Yeah.
The reason why is because his church was educating him to say that the schools, what they're doing, the teachers there are teaching children to be socialists or teaching children. They're using these derogatory terms of what's actually happening in schools to incentivize violence from certain individuals, to blame them for what's going on.
So can I ask you, because I'm not sure, I don't know that much detail. I've done some research and I had some different findings, okay? I had findings where people who feel that they're not getting anything out of society. So for example, one of my bits of research was there's a group of people who call themselves incels, basically people who are unable to get into relationships with other people, right? And it's just a common problem. Because of the disconnection between people are not finding themselves part of society. When they feel that they've got no connection with society, it's much easier to shoot everybody and of course be very angry with society because they're not part of it. But anyway,
both of our statements don't contradict each other.
Sure. So maybe it's both.
There are other reasons as well.
Yeah.
But we've both brought up valid observations. Both of us. Because a man in Plymouth, not so long ago, was an incel.
Yeah.
And he shot lesbian people in the UK.
Yeah.
So we don't contradict each other.
Cool. I'm just making sure. Okay. So now I'm all about.
Right.
This is my big thing on these shows. Good. Okay. Yeah. This is my big thing on these shows. I don't like to point the finger. I like to point the thumb, which means what can we do? How do we fix the problem? Because, like you said, Trump. I agree. Trump likes to start fires because that's how he wins in politics. But he wouldn't win if the masses didn't follow him. Why? Right? So, what are your thoughts? I like to give a solution, one simple solution, and I think it's religion. And this is not. I'm very practical in terms of psychology.
I know that
psychologists say religion makes people happier, even though the media like to say otherwise. Okay, and that's because every Sunday Christians have to get together and meet their fellow Christian people in the community. Every Friday Muslims have to do the same. Every Saturday Jews have to do the same. And actually, it doesn't mean they have to be separated, because when you have these common bits of saying all the religions, all these three religions and more, they say be friends with your neighbors. Look at London. People don't even talk to their neighbors, right? Guess what's happening in America? The same problem. So that's my solution. What are your thoughts about a solution?
Well, I don't disagree with you, and and I absolutely agree, because religion is the biggest, the followers in this world. Whether it's Muslim or Christian or Pentecostal or whatever it is, And sometimes I wonder, whether the responsibility really lies with the religious leaders, themselves, or is it just us, the thumb pointing thing that you're talking about, Because the us, in my opinion, would be to say, if there's an election, I should get up and go and vote and make sure that the person who is preaching hatred doesn't get into office.
I agree.
So we hold a bigger responsibility. Yes, I mean the religious leadership are there to direct us, to guide us, but at the end of the day, we as individuals need to play our role. And I think, elections are always very important, to make sure the hate preachers don't get into office, because it's when they do, that other people with hatred just feel empowered, like was the case with Trump. As soon as he came into office, they read him and they said, "Oh, we can bring out our Nazi flags. Great! I can say what I've been hiding, for the past 50 years because this man, agrees with me." So, I mean, the responsibility is with community.
We are the masses. We are the people who are in majority. We've got the power if we want it.
And I'm not saying what happened in Sri Lanka a few days ago is right, but that's a showing of what people can do when they actually get together and they say no to something.
Cool. Tell me what happened.
The Prime Minister was there refusing to go. The country was going down, and they just ransacked his residence, and they got in and they said, we don't really want you. We want you gone, you know. And he left. But until
he voted out?
the people no, he was.
I'm not sure if I agree with that.
That's why I'm saying I don't agree with the methodology. But he was refusing to go.
But I agree that
the only point I'm making is to say that's the power.
Yes, I agree with that. Yes.
You know.
Yes.
So we should always use our power. You know, whether it's and mainly in the ballot box especially, to not allow hatred preaching leaders to come into power.
Perfect. Beautiful.
That's my.
Can I just say this, lady, if you don't mind asking your name?
Chola.
Very nice to meet you. I think your words of wisdom have contributed greatly to this video that we're doing.
I don't even know what video you're doing here. I'm just.
We can talk about that in a bit, but let me just add to that. I think it's very important to detail that the fact that in Sri Lanka, what happened was it's a great example of how democracy is not allowed to ever function. Democracy is not allowed to function ever. And what this happened in Sri Lanka is an example of a democracy isn't really a democracy, because people were suffering horrifically. And they were never allowed a political expression of that suffering. So that means the leader ignored democracy. Like in the West, it ignores the people's voice and it only listens to money. That's only what, and that means if you have a system like that, it's always guaranteed to lead to unrest and unnecessary violence. Whereas if you had a functioning democracy and a functioning government, that means those scenes would never transpire, never happen. Oh, that's a failure of leadership, not of the people storming that palace. Which should never happen.
And it should never happen, because when I saw the storming of that palace, it took me right back to Capitol Hill, and I started to say to myself, you see, America gave a very bad example, you know, by those people storming Capitol Hill. And then you see in Sri Lanka, they stormed the Prime Minister's residence. It's going to start being a trend, and that's not the way democracy should work. But you see, when you have a powerful state like America, and people get so unruly like they did with Capitol Hill, you get the Sri Lankas of this world, and next it will be another country and another country. You know, and democracy shouldn't work like that.
I think we should all add a solution here, by the way. We should all add a solution. And I'm going to go first, by privilege, because I thought of it. And my solution is make sure money has nothing to do with politics. Remove all money from politics. Like in America, if you're not a billionaire, you ain't becoming Prime Minister of the country. Where it should be a teacher in America should have equal opportunity to become a Prime Minister of America, President, of America, than anybody else. Money should never ever play into a factor. So therefore, democracy needs to be funded by government and the taxpayer, and needs to have proper legal measures over it to make sure people like Donald Trump or Hitler, both are the same person, don't suddenly decide, oh, I've had enough of democracy because it didn't vote for me. Therefore, I will now execute executions, literally. So obviously we need strong legal measures that can step in at any moment, but fundamentally it must be transparent at every level. Transparent. There is no secrets in government, apart from obviously some very unique niche things, but it shouldn't be the common thread through government. So transparency, no money. The only vote that matters, the only lobbying that matters is the democracy that voted for that person to be in power on a manifesto or commitment that he or she is legally bound to. You are legally bound to it. Therefore, if you lie, you go to prison. I love it. Go to prison.
I absolutely
Would you
agree.
Now but it's got to be. This is now a solution.
And I'll be very quick.
Solution, not more description.
Solution. Solution, and I absolutely agree with you, especially on the money, because the example I'll give in agreeing with you is Russia. You see, the oligarchs brought in Putin, and he is now so financially powerful himself. They too are so financially powerful, and look at what they've done now. Democracy doesn't exist in that country any longer, you know. And you have the solution is, you know, you see,
If you don't know one, that's fine.
No, the solution is, for me, it's the ballot box. Give power to the people. It has to be. Power has to lie with the people. Power should never lie with individuals. Just because, like you say, they have pockets of money, or they are able to, grab things and then have the power to say, now, we are in control. Power should lie with the masses.
Thank you very much.
Cool. And I'm going to say something that people might find interesting. And this is, first of all, I agree with what you're saying, that there shouldn't even be money in politics, because otherwise it's just the rich who basically take control. Or the people with money who pull the strings are the people who take control, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so I agree with that. And I think that might be another Islamic idea that you picked up again, because he's always coming with Islamic. And this is what ideas that I've been brought up as a Muslim, that there should be no money in politics. Even though so-called Muslim countries might not do that, that's another story, okay? And I agree that it's a nice idea that you should talk through the ballot box. I think we should probably talk way more times than just through the ballot box as well as a community.
Yes.
But this is a special thing I'm going to say. And this is from a quote that I heard from Prophet Muhammad. He said, you deserve the leaders you get. So it sounds really harsh, but if we are corrupt, and I see corruption all the time, I don't even like working in companies, because I work in loads of schools, I'm a teacher. Every school I teach in, so much politics that I rather not work there. So I work as an independent contractor, right? It's terrible. So we are really corrupt, and our leaders see that corruption and use that, they use that. They can see the disease. If they didn't see the disease, they wouldn't be able to take advantage of it. So we need to fix ourselves, and then naturally we would get better leaders, and it would be better leaders worth voting for. Because that's why so many young people don't vote, because they just see one Hitler versus another Stalin. That's all they get.
Yeah, but the young people have to become more responsible.
Yes, I agree.
They have a big voice. Look at how they're very involved in the climate change issues.
Sure.
But it would be great if they would express the same interest in politics, because they're tomorrow's leaders.
Yeah.
And it's not great, that they just decide, oh yeah, just because they don't like what they're looking at, then they don't participate and play their role. It is very important that they actually,
Thank you for balancing out my point of view.
Yeah.
So is that it?
Wonderful.
Thank you so much. Appreciate it. Thank you very much. Cool. Over and out.